Reinhild Niebuhr. I'm the founder of the Young Africa Vision. Welcome to this episode of Young Africa Today. In today's episode, I'm talking to Tonderai Njowera from Harare in Zimbabwe. Tonderai is an impact investment specialist. He and I were talking about what it means to make an impact investment and about some of the opportunities for impact investing in Africa. I hope you enjoy this interview. Tonderai Njowera, I'm very, very excited about having you as the very first interviewee on the Young Africa Today show from outside of South Africa. I've interviewed Jörg Zucki, who originally is from Switzerland, but he's living in South Africa now. But this is my first cross-border interview, so I'm very, very excited. Thank you very much for making time. So I'm going to start by asking you to just tell us a little bit about Tonderai Njowera. Where are you living? What are you busy with? So that we can start with this story.
Thank you very much, Reinhild, for having me here. And apparently, I remember one of my very first international flights was actually from Johannesburg into Harare. So it's just something that is repeating itself here now that you're talking about.
Yeah, the cross-border thing.
First cross-border interview. So my first cross-border flight was actually from Joburg into Harare, and just to get into my background, as you have asked, well, Tonderai Njowera is a civil and water engineer. He's a graduate member of the Zimbabwean Institution of Engineers. He's also an associate member of the South African Institution of Civil Engineers, and at the same time, he's a certified expert in sustainable finance, a certified expert in Islamic microfinance. And Tonderai's background, which is anchored in both sustainable finance and civil engineering, has allowed him to be working on various matters to do with sustainability, particularly now with a focus in impact investing, and currently working as a managing director with Impact West Matrix, where he's a founding partner there, and now he's leading the team towards getting institutions from the financial sector, from the real sector, and from other associated sector to be able to integrate sustainability strategies, incorporating environmental, social, and governance factors into their investment strategies, into their business strategies. So basically, that is his background.
I like the fact that you're talking in the third person. But it sounds as if you have a very interesting background, and maybe you can just repeat the name of your company.
Okay, the company is called Impact West Matrix, and it's part of the Impact West group.
Okay.
And yeah, to finish off the question, I'm currently based in Harare, Zimbabwe. That is where I'm based at the moment.
Okay, wonderful. I miss Harare. I used to go to Harare almost every week for a couple of years, but I haven't been there since 2008, which is a tragedy. It's been a long time since I've been there, and I really miss Harare. Were you born? Did you grow up in Harare, or did you grow up in a different part of Zimbabwe?
So I was actually born. I was actually born in Harare, and I grew up in Harare. I attended my primary school and my secondary school in Harare. Then I moved to Zimba for my advanced levels, and then for my undergrad, I relocated to Bulawayo, the second largest city. And then I came back. As I was working, I was now between Harare and Ngezi, Harare and Bindura, which are two mining towns. But most of the time I spent it in Harare, yes.
And what made you make the shift from engineering into impact investing?
So as I was actually completing my undergraduate degree, I had this idea which I had from quite a long time back, which was to get involved in project finance. Naturally, as I was growing up, I've always loved matters around the environment, matters around sustainability. So when I was finishing up my undergrad, that idea of establishing an infrastructure fund focusing on highways, focusing on airports and other real estate assets, utility and both private real estate assets, I then thought it would be good to have a mix of engineering and finance skills. So having a civil engineering background, and now that I had started my Master of Leadership in Development Finance, which is now actually called a Master of Leadership in Sustainable Finance, that zeal was actually enhanced because as part of my elective modules, I had to do sustainable finance, a certified expert course in sustainable finance. And so engineering and sustainable finance, they really tie in together. It's a transition, yes, but it's not a transition as well, because engineering and sustainability, I believe that they are one thing, but I hope I've managed to explain how I
Yes.
how I've developed in it.
No, very interesting. I'm excited to find you. I'm excited. Well, I always like asking the question, what you connected to me on LinkedIn. What drew your attention? What is it that you found interesting about what I'm doing on LinkedIn?
So when I looked at your profile, I realized that you were number one, moving into. In fact, you're moving in the direction of sustainability, impact, and those are issues that I'm really passionate about. Because, like I said, naturally, as I was growing, I'll give an example. I remember in secondary school, particularly as we were growing, we used to have a tap of water that was behind all of the classes, and it was on your way to the dining hall. And each time I would always check as I was passing through that tap to make sure that tap was not open and it was closed, no water was coming out. That's just an example of how I thought I would be responsible to be saving water from a very young and tender age. So I'm really passionate about these sustainability issues from even that young and tender age. So when I looked at your profile, I realized that that's the direction that you're taking. Firstly, and secondly, Africa is a continent of high opportunity. It's a continent where there is a lot that is beginning to evolve, and it's also a direction that you've picked and said you're looking at the young Africa. I mean, looking at young Africa, I wouldn't then say it's only about the youth demographic dividend within Africa, but then the fact that Africa being emerging, it makes it a young continent in itself. So because you're focusing on all those issues, it was definitely interesting to get connected with you, follow your story, follow your vision, and obviously to exchange and interact, getting to know each other better and getting to develop Africa better together.
That's wonderful. I must say that one thing that I wanted to clarify for our viewers is that I've heard people talk about impact investing from two different perspectives, and some people call grants an impact investment, and I don't really agree with that unless it is investing in a social enterprise where there is ultimately a return on investment. But from my point of view, impact investing is if you take capital and you invest it in a business that is going to have a social impact. So I was wondering, what is it that you are focusing on? Are you specifically looking at grant funding, or are you looking at investment capital that can bring a return on investment but make a social impact at the same time?
The way I would look at it, and what we are also looking at the moment is we are focused primarily on the traditional kind of financing aside from grants, whereby we are bringing in investments so that we can have a social impact, a positive social impact and a positive environmental impact, so to speak. But at the same time, because we also have philanthropy, for example, we would then look at grant financing as a conduit that allows an investment to be at least to be risk not necessarily risk free, but at least we would have reduced the risk. So a grant can actually come into mainstream investment, whereby we are looking for financial profits along with social dividends and environmental dividends. So it's a mix, really. That's what I would say. It's a mix. Our usual investment to make profit, but making sure that it's not only profit. I mean, we talk of the triple bottom line, so it can be a mix. We have a lot of instruments that we can bring together to get that positive impact that we'll be looking for. So it's really a mix.
Okay, great. Because I just like to clarify that I was working in the pure grant making fundraising sector for many years, and I realized that a company has a little bit of money available for grant making, but for me that wasn't enough. I wanted access to the whole pot, not just the little wallet. Because I think we need huge amounts of investment funding to finance the cities that we have to build in Africa, the roads that we have to build in Africa, the solar powered speed trains that we have to build in Africa. the private airfields that we have to build in Africa, the harbors that we have to build in Africa. And so that little wallet of grant funding wasn't enough for me. I mean, of course, one is very grateful for any contribution that anyone makes, but I just thought, no. After working in the grant making sector for a long time, I really wanted to also move into the what I call the real investment sector, because there's so much opportunity and there's so much more capital. And especially when I looked at Europe, and at the time I had a lot of interaction with Germany, and I saw how incredibly low the interest rates are in Germany. At some point they were in minus, and people were having retirement money, they actually had to pay the banks to keep the money for them. They didn't even earn any interest anymore. And I thought, no, this is wrong. They should bring the money to Africa so Africa's youth can build dynamic enterprises and multiply their investment, instead of keeping it all in Europe, where they can't even. I mean, I even read an article where young people were complaining that all the old people have bought up all the shares on the stock exchange. There's no space for them on the German stock exchange to put their money anymore, because all the big companies have been oversubscribed. And I just thought, guys, you really need to look just across the little lake, just look to your neighbor across the little lake, the Mediterranean Sea, and you will have huge opportunities for investment. And maybe the older generation is the one that should actually take part of their pension investment and invest it into the young enterprises in Africa. So that is when I decided I'm shifting away from grants, I'm shifting into finance, and we have to get the message out there that the world must know there is so much opportunity here in Africa, and if we work together with the new technology, we can make it happen. So I don't know what you think about my perspective on that.
Well, I totally agree with you there. And one thing that I need to continue mentioning from the introductory narration I gave was I considered project financing, for example, which then made me to start moving into the development finance direction. Was that I initially said, how about coming up with what we would call a young experts pension fund? So the Young Experts Pension Fund, what it would then do is it was going to pull investments from the young African diaspora. Well, initially it was a focus on the Zimbabwean border. Then as you grow and as you start realizing that it's not only about Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe should be borderless in any way. Africa should be borderless in any way.
Yay! I agree.
I started I started that why not make it African an African initiative whereby we have our diaspora based in various jurisdictions. It could be in intra Africa, or it could be intercontinental. And I've actually seen that in Kenya, for example. I follow one group that is a group of diasporans that are based in the United States of America, and they're investing back home. So I've actually, with the finance director, is based in Atlanta, Georgia, if I remember very well. But then the way that they started and the way that they're implementing everything is to make sure that at the end of the day, they are not just doing a project whereby they collect money and they say we are donating. No, it's actually a profit making venture that they're making, and from single million digit figures they are moving into double figures, and they keep going and they keep growing. So I do believe that there are some projects that need some sort of subsidies, and we can understand that, especially now that we're moving into, for example, renewable energy, renewable power. Some of those projects may need a bit of not necessarily subsidization, but they may need a bit of risk financing, which may come as grants. But at the end of the day, whoever is the ultimate investor, whoever is bringing in the huge sum of cash, that needs to be the private sector. And one of the key things that will continue driving our enterprises, of course, it's not going to be the only factor, but it's profit. Again, we speak of the triple bottom line. We are talking about our profit, we are talking about our people, and we're talking about our planet. So the profit is a key anchor there, and at times as well, grants will not take us anyway, because yes, we can measure some social returns, but then the sustainability of the business at the end of the day, after 2-3 years, the investment is gone. But we want it to continue moving. And so I totally agree with the way that you look at grants and what you have decided to call the normal investing.
So tell me, in terms of the there's two things going on in my mind at the moment. The one thing is around the infrastructure investments, because one of the things that I've realized is that it's quite difficult to coordinate private investment into infrastructure, because you always have to work with the government of the day in order to develop those roads and in order to develop the bridges or whatever. Have you started doing any work in this regard with the government in Zimbabwe, or not yet?
So there was a project that we actually tried to implement. That was early 2020, but we have decided to actually suspend it for a bit. So yes, there was interaction between ourselves and the government, but this was not within the realms of Impact Fest. We were starting out a startup called Kiani Energy, and our focus was, we wanted to bring in a rural learning lab, a rural computer learning lab, where the community would come in, and we would bring in solar power into the communities, more of a computer lab basically, but where the rural folk would learn to use the internet, would learn to use the machines and everything. So then we were going to be interacting with the rural district council, and it's with one of the northern provinces, closer to the Mozambican border and closer to the Zambezi River. So for now, the reason why we ended up suspending the project was because we realized that we had to have a bit of funding. We wanted to make it again a sustainable project, rather than a project whereby we just bring in a facility and we give it to the hands of the community and we go away. For it to be sustainable again, there is need for that profit to be generated. So it's suspended for now, but we are definitely going to continue with it. But yes, there was some interaction with the rural district council, which is part of the government of Zimbabwe. Yes. And at the same time, we also needed to engage with the Ministry of Education, because whatever solutions that we're bringing were also going to be under the view of the administration as well.
I was working in the development sector, working with an American grant-making organization for many years, and flying all over Southern Africa, and then also had some other clients going to other countries, northern, more north, but also in the SADC area. But when I was working in South Africa, I was just realizing that our government is struggling. Realized that many people are just waiting for government to do things, and it is really not fair because we as the citizens are supposed to do things. This is why I started thinking about what can citizens do? What can the private sector do? And there are some very interesting South African companies that are busy building shopping malls all over Africa, that are doing all kinds of things, and they're not waiting for government to do anything. And I thought that's the road to go. And so Young Africa is for me also very much, and this is the reason why I started this program as well, is to reach out to people who are like-minded so that we can take hands, because each one of us has contacts, connections, and resources. And if we can together, we can achieve a lot more, I think, than if we work in our little corner in one little part of the continent. It's time to reach out. One of the financial instruments that I learned about was a church-based finance entity in America, where members of the church would save their money, and then the congregations could borrow the money and build new schools. And if they had old age homes they wanted to build, or even healthcare facilities they wanted to build, then they would borrow the money from the members of the broader congregation. It's quite a big church. They've got 3 million members. So their funds, their investments are now over $1 billion. And they really have, I mean, it's been around for 100 years. But what I liked about it was that it was a non-profit model, in the sense that the entity, the investment entity, or the fund, was a non-profit. But the people investing in there would get interest, and the people borrowing would pay interest. But because there was nobody pulling out profit out of the fund, they could keep the interest very affordable to the congregations that wanted to borrow, and it was still more than what a person would earn if they would put the money in the bank, because of the low interest of the banks. And the entity would just use 1% for their administration, fund administration. And so I thought that is one thing that we need to do, and I have a name for it. It's called Young Africa Finance, but I haven't yet established it, because I'm looking for people like you to work with me on this, because I believe we need to set this up in Mauritius. I've done all my research, and I think we have to do this in Mauritius. So I'm hoping that there are viewers out there who are hearing this, who are getting excited to work with Tonderai and me on making this Young Africa Finance thing happen. Because I'm very excited to meet you, Tonderai, because of your background in project finance. And I can tell you that 2018 took me all over America and also in Germany, and I have fantastic networks of people who are keen to invest. But we need projects. We need projects that are viable. And my life sort of took a different turn, and so I hadn't been able in the last 2 years to really focus on that part. But I've also realized that I have a very clear strategy with Young Africa, and it is far too much for one person. It will never work if it's just one little woman sitting in the tip of Africa trying to do anything. I need to partner, and I need to I need to find people that have a shared vision. So I think we should have an offline conversation to discuss this. But just off the top of your head, what do you think about what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. The point is, one thing that I have never believed is there is a lack of finance or investment. I have never believed that there is a lack of both of those and at the same time, considering the place where we are as Africa, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. I've always had the laugh in my mind to say, I'm not necessarily going to focus on maybe private real estate as an example, a single shopping mall, but I would actually love to focus on highways, airports, water supply, power supply, because those can have a massive impact. You can imagine if we're going to supply water in a village in KwaZulu-Natal, for example, or in Mashonaland Central, here in Zimbabwe, or maybe one of the provinces in Nigeria. I remember I was actually involved in the planning of one of the water projects that was being done by the African Development Bank, and I'm actually happy to say that the organization that I was working with then managed to actually have one of the projects in Juba, South Sudan. The reason why I'm talking about all of these places is because I really believe that in terms of projects, there's a lot that needs to be done. I mean, from Cape to Cairo, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Whatever infrastructure that we can think of. So what we're saying makes absolute sense. The vision is very, very clear, and in terms of people coming together, like we were talking about earlier on in the conversation. Africa should actually have no borders. It should be borderless. And the fact that you are there seated in South Africa, it's one part of Africa. Further north, I'm seated there, and further north, there are other people that are actually seated, and they also have similar thoughts and similar minds. And I'm actually working at the moment pro bono with one of the organizations. It's called Engineer Africa, and we are also trying to identify some of these projects which we can actually get involved in and get financing for. But one key matter that is important at the end of the day is, like you mentioned, the bankability of the project. So overall, what I'm saying is I absolutely agree with you. I totally agree with you. And we need to raise the financing. We need to make the projects bankable and available. We need to also bring the project visibility, and to make sure that investors understand that the case of Africa, in fact, I think in terms of dividends, if someone is really serious about both our social dividends, environmental dividends, and profit-based dividends, all of those three, the perfect home for those to come as a triple bottom line is Africa.
I actually have expanded the triple bottom line to the quadruple bottom line.
Wow.
So I'm saying it's got to be financially viable. It's got to be good for the people involved, the people working there. So it's got to be good for the investors. It's got to be good for the people working there. It's got to be good for the environment, but it also has to be good for the community, which is hosting the entity.
Yes.
And so, for instance, when I look at the mining sector, I always think that the community where the mine is located should be very much the owner of the mine.
Mm-hmm.
Be the owner of
Definitely.
the mine. And so that and of course you would have a company that would come in that would operate the mine, but the community should have an income from that mine to help fund its own infrastructure. And the money shouldn't just be going into a company that pulls the money out and pays taxes to a national level. I'm completely convinced that we need to start developing from community level upwards. And while you understand that at national level there are policies and procedures and all of these things that have to happen to keep stability in the country, I really think the action can only be local. Action is local, and we need to start locally. And this is why I also founded the Academy for Young Africa. This is actually existing, and I'm about to launch a leadership and entrepreneurship program for our unemployed youth, the ones that don't know what to do, that are sitting at home. They are the ones that I want to work with and mobilize to transform this continent, because they have the energy and they have the enthusiasm, and I know they have the intelligence, and I know that I have many case studies of youth that I've mentored that I've been able to take from a position of hopelessness into a position of extreme productivity and enthusiasm about life. And I just want to scale that up now 200 million times. So I'm so excited about the technology. But then the plan is really that these young people will first learn how to think, because that's the first thing. Of course, I also believe they need to know what to believe. They need to know what to think. And then they need to learn basic skills, and they need to use technology. And in doing so, they will be ready to start working or creating businesses. I don't believe so much in startups. I believe in franchising. I think startups are great for innovations, but everything else, we must not reinvent the wheel. We must just franchise. As they need, as they are, and as we partner with existing franchises, we need to build cities. What is a Young Africa city? A Young Africa city is a mixed use, a multi-purpose mixed use development, where you have people living, learning, working, and playing, and you have it in one development. And you make sure, of course, it's sustainable, environmentally sustainable, a smart space, And we just need to roll out these places where young people with a relatively low level of skill can operate a franchise business and provide the basic needs and services that anyone needs: hairdressing, food, car mechanic, whatever, And we just have to get everybody into one of these cities. That's what I believe. And some of the cities can be more rural, meaning they can have more space. Others can be really in the middle of an urban area. It doesn't matter. They just go high rise. It doesn't matter. But I just think that is where we need to start, because that is really creating opportunities for young people. And then we want to connect these places with one another. And that is where we need the roads and the speed trains, solar powered, and and the airports and the harbors, But I think that we should just start building cities, like like 10,000 people in a space. That's my strategy for Young Africa in terms of development, because it's just saying, let's create opportunities which are real at local level, and then take it from there. So now I've given you a little bit of a picture of where I want what I want to start investing for, because I also realize that if someone has a farm, please, viewer, if you are here in Africa and you have access to a piece of land, you own a piece of land, contact us, contact me, so we can turn that land into a city. So that we can turn that into a city. Make sure, especially if it's halfway between two bigger cities already, find one. Let's start building something there. We can create exciting, new, beautiful spaces with our youth. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. But Tonderai, I've now spoken a lot about my visions and my things. Can I ask you, and this is the key reason why I'm having this show, is what is your vision for Africa?
That's a very, very amazing question again. Thank you for bringing it. I have to clear my throat for for the response, but basing on this discussion and other thoughts that we have, other fantasies and visions that we've already had in the past and in today's show, I think the vision that I have for Africa stems around having in Africa, I was going to say a borderless Africa, obviously, that understands itself, that appreciates itself, that knows where it's coming from and where it's going, but to stop, of course, dwelling much on the past. Yes, we need to understand our past to have a solid foundation, but we need to. I envision an Africa that has got solid visions and a common goal that brings together our innovative differences. And I always say that the one key aspect that makes or brings together one humanity is because of our diversity. We are human because we are diverse. So in as much as we have around 54, 56 borders within the African continent, each of us need to understand where we come from. We need to understand our culture. We need to understand how best we fit also into the global system, so that whatever innovations that we bring that are of course Afrocentric. At times we don't even have to reinvent the wheel, but we really need to have solutions that are Afro-based, that are there to solve African problems. Because let me not call them problems, rather challenges, because we at least
opportunities.
We really, yes, opportunities. Exactly. They become opportunities once we look at them as challenges rather than as
every
problems.
problem
because
an opportunity.
Really are, yes. So I'm going to take away my word problems. It's not problems. They are challenges which we then turn into opportunities. I mean, in their real nature, they are opportunities. So in summary, I'll just repeat what the few words that I've used. In Africa, that understands itself, and that is rearing to go forward, and obviously basing on the youth dividend that the African Union has looked forward to. That in itself is a force to reckon with. So an Africa, united Africa, but most importantly, that understands. The point that I'm trying to really bring home is we should be able to understand ourselves and how we fit into the global realm. Because if we at least understand ourselves, where there is need for us to feel inferior because we are from Africa, we will stop feeling inferior. And there are times when I just feel, you need to forget where you actually come from. You need to forget that you're African and make yourself a global citizen. Because once you start thinking on that particular global citizenship, you then forget that, okay, it's at times referred to as a dark continent. I don't even think about that, honestly. But just to inspire someone out there, I thought it's good to mention that at times take yourself out of the African border. And in closing, I will just repeat one of the quotes I heard from my late lecturer, Engineer Vasant Design. This was our very last conversation. He simply said, "Tonderai, I want you to remember that the internet is your window to the world. So the internet will break all the borders, all the intercontinental borders, and the internet will not see that there's an overseas destination. It places you in Germany when you're seated in Cape Town, for example. So yeah, let's understand the opportunities that are around. Sure.
Well, I really agree that we are living in the absolutely most exciting time. And the only people that called Africa dark were people who had no clue what's going on here. Africa was never dark. It was their mind that was dark because they didn't know what's going on. But there is so much light in Africa. And in fact, I believe that Africa can be a light bringer to the rest of the world. My background is in communications. I used to make a living as a communication strategist. And one of the key things that you learn as a communication strategist is you must define yourself. Others will do it. Otherwise, others will do it for you. Define yourself. Otherwise, others will do it for you. So Africa, define yourself, because for too long, everyone around Africa has defined Africa. It's time for Africa to define itself, and that is a lot of light shining out of this continent. But thank you very much for your time, and it was lovely talking to you.
No, definitely it was absolutely amazing being featured in this episode, and I really look forward to future exchanges. It's not going to be the last episode I hope to be featuring here. This is just the first. I look forward to more ahead, and definitely learning from other participants. And I really hope that this conversation inspires a lot of other young Africans there.
Isn't it amazing to know that there are such passionate, highly qualified, and very visionary young professionals all across Africa that are ready and willing to make a difference right where they live in their hometown, and that see the potential of the young Africa. As I mentioned in this interview with Tonderai Njowera, please reach out if you want to work with us on bringing more investment into Africa, on developing new opportunities for Africa's youth to live, work, learn and play for developing the infrastructure that Africa needs in order to transport goods and resources and people, and just in general to build a beautiful Africa. This is the most exciting time to live in, and the internet is the secret that's connecting all of us. See you in the next episode. Thank you for watching.